This is Mark Guerrero. Welcome to East LA Music Stories. My guest today is Larry Rendon, the sax player for the Midniters. Now, Larry was there from day one. As a matter of fact, he was there from before day one. When they were the Gentiles, before they became Benny and the Midniters, he was in both those groups, which was the evolution of the Midniters, the beginning. So this is really an opportunity to make a real deep dive into the Midniters, because not only was he there from the absolute beginnings, but played with them through decades. You know, I would venture to say there's been nobody who's played more gigs in the Midniters than Larry Rendon. Plus, he played on all their records, their albums. So welcome, Larry. How you doing?
Oh, doing great. Nice to be here. It's a nice day in the neighborhood, as they say.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So let's just start at the very beginning. What got you into music and had you inspired to pick the sax?
Well, in the beginning, it was mostly my dad and my mom, because around the house we had music all the time. We had music from Dixieland to jazz, to Latin jazz, to mambos, cumbias, danzones, mariachis, hacer mejia, all kinds of music. So that got into my blood. And it's funny though, my parents used to watch Lawrence Welk. Everybody laughs when I say that. But I saw this guy, he took out all the saxes. He took out the bari, the tenor, the alto, and the soprano. He put them out in front of him, and he played each one of them. And I thought to myself, God, that looks great. I'd like to do that. And, thank God I did.
Lawrence Welk had a reputation for being extremely corny. However, he used fantastic musicians, right?
Right. They were great. The singers, dancers, sax players, all of them were great.
That's right. So did your dad or mom play an instrument, or did they just love music?
My dad was a chef. He loved music, and he did play some drums. He did play percussion for a bit. Yeah, well, after that, I was going to school at Our Lady of Talpa in Boyle Heights on Evergreen and 4th, and they had a youth band there, so I signed up with Professor Bañuelos. I was there for maybe a year or two, and then he passed away. And then I got into another youth band called La Banda Original Mexicana. And that was where I got most of my music education. It was a fairly big band, maybe 20 or 30 pieces. They had singers, dancers, and we played all over Southern California. We played at the Shrine, Disneyland, and so many venues. And that was my start.
Was that even before you took music in school, school orchestras?
Correct.
Wow. So you learned to read that way rather than from school.
Yeah, he'd go up on the chalkboard, he'd write all the notes and the values, and I learned from that.
Wow.
Funny, we used to practice at the Paramount Ballroom.
Wow.
Upstairs.
Wow.
I thought that was funny because years later, we'd play there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my start. We even played at the Olympic Auditorium. We played for the fights.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had the youth band up on the, up a little higher in the balcony or whatever, and we played for I think it was Wednesday or Thursday night fights. So I got to listen to Jimmy Lennon and see all the boxers and, Archie Moore and all the old time boxers. We did that for a while.
Wow, that's fantastic. So who were some of your saxophone idols at the time, people you looked up to?
Well, in the beginning, it was mostly sort of classical, but my cousin, Paul, introduced me to like Stan Getz. He's the first one I really I listened to. Mm-hmm. And after Stan Getz, it opened a whole other world for me. Then I started listening, of course, to John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Phil Woods, and even Stanley Turrentine, all those guys. I liked all their styles, because I was never really like a honker, real high notes and stuff.
I was just
I
going to
took,
ask you about that, like people like Big J McNeely and all those kind of guys, Joe Houston,
yeah, I listened to them also.
but you didn't relate to them.
Yeah, I preferred, Coltrane or Getz, but I try to make myself work so I can play with,
Yeah.
different bands. And I think the first band that I actually played in outside the youth band might have been a small group. I can't even remember the name, but I remember Zamora. Benji Zamora was on that band. And we used to rehearse at Laguna Park, which is now Salazar Park.
Was he a lead guitar player?
He was the lead guitar
Yeah,
player,
I remember
Benji.
him.
Yeah. And after that, I started meeting more people, more musicians. And to this day, it's racking my memory to see how I got involved with Salesian.
Yeah.
I believe,
So you were not a student there?
no, I went to Cantwell High School.
Okay.
My friends went there, and so I went there myself.
Cantwell, another Catholic school.
It was a Catholic school also, and they had a band also, but not like Salesian. Salesian, the music program was great.
With Taggart.
But anyway, I met Tony Garcia, I believe, first. I don't know how I met him. Maybe somebody told him about me, and I started playing with him in the band called the Mystics. It was Tony, myself, Romeo Prado, Bobby Loya,
Wow.
and a lot of other musicians, Chris May, and we did, weddings, parties, and all that stuff. And I think it was during that, or maybe a little earlier, that I met Raul Ceballos and Willie, Joe Farfan. Apparently, I was playing at Cantwell High School for some function, and they heard me, and they approached me about getting into their band, which was the Gentiles. I thought about it. I said, yeah, because I wanted to play. That's my whole thing. So I joined the band.
Wow.
At that time, the Gentiles, I believe, consisted of, Willie, Joe Farfan, Raul Ceballos, Benny Ceballos, Richard Ceballos, myself, and Daniel Amon. When I got into in the jails.
Oops, that was later.
Get that, all right? Gentiles. I never been to jail, okay?
I was going to say about the Gentiles, it's funny the way that name came about, because what an unbelievable name for a band, right? A Gentile is a non-Jewish person. And Willie G told me the story of how that happened, that you guys would go pick up this band member that was Jewish, and his father would come out and say, why are you going to play with those Gentiles? And that's where the name came from.
Yeah, they told me that story. I got it right after that when Danny came in, but it was quite a band. I remember playing garage parties and all over the place. And I think the first one we played, or one of the places we played in what was that? We played in I got it right here. We played in the Battle of the Bands, and the name of the Midniter was Benny and the Midniters.
Right.
Benny Ceballos.
Yeah.
Benny Ceballos was the leader then. And we played the Battle of the Bands. I think it was in 1963.
Where was that battle?
Let's see. I think it was in Buena Park.
Oh,
It was
okay.
in Buena Park, 1963.
Yeah, I think Willie told me you guys would play in Orange County some.
Yeah, we played there, and after that, we started playing more gigs and weddings, and I think we got a good reputation. So by the time we got to the rock and roll shows, I think we had a pretty good fan base, and the reception was, to say the least, tremendous for us. I remember playing at the East LA College in the rising stage,
Oh, that was fun.
But you start playing, the stage starts rising, and you hear all this crowd going, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was going, oh my God.
That was great.
One funny story though, we were on stage playing, and you know how we used to move around, and we used to go like that towards the audience. I went like this, some girl somehow grabbed my class ring right off my
Wow.
finger.
Whoa.
I said, "Whoa, what happened?"
Did you get it back?
But yeah, I got it back, thank God. But those times were, were exciting, especially
Absolutely.
for especially for me, because I was, the quiet one.
The quiet one, the quiet beetle, quiet midnighter. Let's
Yeah.
before we get off the Gentiles, let's dig into the Gentiles a bit. So the Ceballos brothers, there are three of them.
Ceballos.
Raul was guitar.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh,
Richard was bass, and Benny was congas and
right.
leader of the band, and also
See,
Joe Farfan played sax.
let's talk about Joe Farfan. Now, he had a really good reputation. Were you guys
Oh
on a
yeah,
similar level when you joined?
oh yeah. Joe Farfan was great, great sax player. We both had different styles, so I think we complemented each other and complemented the band.
Now, who else was in the band? Oh, and a lot of people don't know. I didn't know for the longest time that Danny Lamont was in the Gentiles because George Salazar was the drummer with the Midnighters in their first big period, and Danny Lamont came in after. So I was surprised to know that Danny was actually in the Gentiles before George, right?
Yeah, when I got in, Danny was already the drummer, and then when we became the Midnighters, Danny, I think, shortly thereafter left to play, different music because he was into surf music also.
So then you said that George Salazar joined and took Danny's place in the Gentiles.
Hmm. Yeah, and then we were the Midnighters with George Salazar, and also Raul Ceballos left, and Benny Ceballos, the conga player leader, also left. I think he was getting married or he wanted to do something else. Funny, during that period, we joined the Stalkers Car Club
I remember that.
because they provided dances, so we would play for the dances and their sponsorship. I didn't know too much about cars, but that was great.
Have we said enough about the Gentiles? Is there anything else about them you want to bring up, or before we get on to Benny and the Midnighters?
Uh, no, but other than there were a lot of unsung heroes, that you would say, with Raleigh and Richard, because they set a certain pace with all the influences, my influence,
Mhm.
Joe's influence, the rhythm and blues influence, and the jazz influence, and that was sort of the genesis, the beginning. And the people we added all had different backgrounds, interests. When Benny came in, he loved the Beatles, so then we started getting the Beatle influence. One time we played at a party, and Roy Marcus sat in playing the guitar, and him and Benny got along great because they loved the Beatles.
So now you're talking about Benny Lopez. They
Benny
have the
Lopez,
same
yeah.
name. Did Roy join right away, or what happened?
Yeah, I think he did right away after that party. He was in. So there was a lot of changes, a lot of influences until we came up recording. And I think a lot of those recordings show the different influences that we had. I think the first one was maybe Sad Girl. And
Mhm. Oh, well, we're going to get into the recordings, but I wanted to mention I have a flyer here. Presentation dance presented by Royal Crown's Stalkers Car Club and Teen Council, featuring special guest stars Jackie DeShannon, the Royal Jesters, the Desires, and Benny and the Midnighters, with vocalist Little Willie G and Little Ray Jimenez singing My Babe and Monkey Time. October 26, 1963. Now, when did Little Ray come into the picture? Was that during Benny and the Midnighters? Obviously it was. It wasn't the Gentiles, right?
right, he came in during the Midnighters. Yeah.
So that was just amazing that you guys had the two best vocalists around in the same band. And so do you remember that particular show?
I remember that show. I remember Bobby, Jackie DeShannon, and Willie and Ray. And I don't know if it was that time, but I remember one time George Salazar's brother built him a platform so he could be above the of the band. And then, of course, we had the masks.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. I was at another show at St. Alphonsus where it was the Midniters. It wasn't Benny and the Midniters. It was the Midniters, and it was with most of the classic lineup. And Bobby Cochran was on guitar. This was
Mhm.
before George Dominguez, I assume. And that's when
Yeah,
you guys wore those masks.
yeah.
What color were they? They were black?
They were black, yeah. I'm not sure if they were sequenced or not, but they were black.
Yeah, I don't think so. But that was a thing. It was very dramatic. I was about 14. I'm in the audience standing up there. And you guys start playing Green Onions. Dum, dum,
Yeah.
dum, 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 dum. People are going crazy. The curtains open. There you guys are with the masks on, and Lil Ray and Willie G in the front.
Mhm.
People went nuts. And I was there, so I witnessed one of those shows with Ray and Willie and Bobby Cochran. Now, Bobby Cochran happened to be the nephew of the famous Eddie Cochran, the rock and roll pioneer, 20 Flight Rock, Summertime Blues. And he was a great guitar player too, Bobby. And I remember he had sort of a Gretsch guitar, kind of a semi-hollow body, the kind that Eddie Cochran might have used. So do you know how he got in the band or where he came from?
Uh, Bobby was good friends with Danny because they go back further back. I think Bobby's dad or somebody had a little studio, and Bobby and Danny used to back up do studio work there long before Bobby came
Okay.
into the band.
Danny Lamont, yeah.
So when Danny came in, a little while after, I think then Bobby came in, and we still had Roy Ceballos. Raleigh Ceballos was still in the band, and they both played guitar.
For a while.
And then Raleigh left, and I'm trying to remember if Bobby left before Raleigh, but I don't think so. After Raleigh left, then we got George Dominguez, and Benny Lopez was already in the band at that time.
That's right. It was great, man. So when did George Dominguez come into the scene?
I think he came in after Benny Lopez came in. When Benny Lopez came in, changes were taking place.
I heard.
I believe Raleigh, he's a really good guitar player, very proud person. He didn't have much of an education musically, but he was very proud. So he was going to play the way he plays and make his way. So he left, and George came in, and that's how George. It was either Willie or Benny that heard him play. It might have been Willie because George, I think, lived in that area with Willie.
Okay.
The central LA and all that.
Yeah.
See, those things, it's been what, 60 years.
So. Oh, I know. That's why there's some mysteries to this day. But he was a good lead guitar player, and then Roy Marcus came in after that.
Yeah, so that's, I think we got, and then Romeo came in too.
Oh, and Romeo, when did he come in?
I think he came in a little before George, a little after, because I knew Benny knew him, and I knew him because we had played with Tony. So I think came in probably almost the same time as Benny Lopez came in.
I know you had a horn section of some kind.
I know I was playing sax, and I'm not sure if we had Joe there too or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember being either a trombone or trumpet. I remember just playing sax or saxes.
Okay.
I might have even played Barry sax. Don't ask me how or why.
Yeah.
But that's in my mind somewhere.
Because of Lawrence Welk, probably. You wanted the whole array. So then you guys started recording, and what was the first thing you did?
I believe it was Sad Girl. We did some 45s, Sad Girl, and some others. That song was on the album.
That was not a single.
That wasn't a single, no.
Sure, it got popular then.
Yeah.
When you did Sad Girl, the very first records.
We had the full lineup then.
Okay. And did you already have Ronnie Figueroa on keyboards, or was that a little?
Yeah.
Okay. And you played that famous intro to Sad Girl?
Yeah, the infamous intro. No.
The infamous two-note intro. From there. but it sounded great. And was that that song was a remake? Somebody else had recorded it before, right?
Yeah, Jay Wiggins, I think,
Yeah.
originally did it.
Did it have that same intro, or did you come up with it?
I don't think it did. I don't, I remember listening to the original, but nothing stood out to me. So we might have changed it. Probably did change it
Mhm.
because we changed all the songs we did. We changed it to our style.
Yeah. In fact, I have a list of your singles here. The first album came out, The Midniters, Whittier Boulevard.
Yeah, we're in front of the marquee,
Yeah,
the family jewels
there you
on the
go.
marquee.
That's right. Jerry Lewis or something, was it?
Barry Lewis, yeah.
Uh, so where'd you record that? Was that at Stereo Masters already?
That's Stereo Masters. Most of our recordings were at Stereo Masters.
Bruce Morgan, engineer.
Yeah, Bruce. Yeah, he was a great help. I mean, he was a tremendous engineer. He helped us a lot.
And was Land of a Thousand Dances on that album, or did that come a little later?
I believe that came a little later. We did that at the 1964 rock and roll show.
Right,
We did
live.
that live. We recorded that live, and our manager somehow got the tape from that show from Mr. Taggart, and he got a label, got Chattahoochee label to put it out.
Is it true? I heard from Willie G, and I think from Little Ray. I've heard that that day you guys were supposed to back up Cannibal and the Headhunters on that song, and they got caught up on the freeway coming down from Bakersfield or something, and so you guys did it yourself. But yet I've talked to other people that say that's not true. Do you remember that at all?
No, I remember that. I remember we rehearsed with Cannibal at Benny's house on Malabar Street,
Mhm.
and we had this shit. We were going to back them up on Land of a Thousand Dances and maybe another couple of songs. And the day of the concert, they got fogged in, coming back from Delano up there, and so they didn't make it in time. So we were down there in the pit, waiting to come up. And we said, Benny or Willie or somebody said, let's do it anyway. We rehearsed it. And the lyrics, Willie knew the lyrics. So we did. The stage rose and we did Land of a Thousand Dances.
And it became a hit. It became a national hit that really got you guys a little bigger on the map nationally.
Yeah, it was great. The Cannibal had it, we had it.
Yeah.
And they were both going up on the charts.
Yeah.
So
Had Cannibal already recorded it when you guys were backing him up?
no.
You really?
I don't believe so, no. I think they recorded it later with, I think,
Eddie Davis, yeah.
Eddie Davis,
Yeah.
and a whole other band.
What I know about it is the Rhythm Playboys
Rhythm Playboys.
were
Yeah.
supposed to back up Cannibal, and Billy Cardenas managed the Rhythm Playboys, and Billy had a falling out with Eddie Davis on the spot, and he took the band with him. So Eddie called up the Blendells, like at 11 at night or whatever. They just showed up, and they wound up backing him up. Rudy Valona and Mike Rincon and all those guys. And the bass player from the Rhythm Playboys hung around. What's his name? Billy Watson.
Hmm.
And he wound up playing alongside Mike Rincon. They had two bass players on it. But that's who wound up backing him. That was Rudy Valona playing lead guitar from the Blendells. So you guys both had a hit at the same time on the charts.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that I think helped both bands a lot, but I think, Eddie Davis had more connections, so
Yeah.
that might have had a lot to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, there's got somewhat higher on the charts, and they wound up touring with the freaking Beatles,
Yeah.
The freaking Beatles.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. There's some other famous songs you did, and they got popular. I Need Someone, Whittier Boulevard, Love Special Delivery came a little later.
Mm-hmm.
It'll Never Be Over for Me. One of my favorites is Never Knew I Had It So Bad.
Oh, yeah.
That is the most rocking songs the Midnighters ever did. That's the
Yeah,
most rocking song. Yeah, because it was really rock and roll. It was like something, it was almost pre-psychedelic. Dum, ba-dum, bum, dum, ba-dum,
yeah,
bum.
yeah, George.
Love it. It's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a funny thing though, during that period, I think I was playing with different bands also. And this musician, I won't say who, came down to pick me up at my house. I think I was still at my parents' house. You know, it was pretty young. And the first thing he said to me, "Wow, so this is what it's like living in the barrio or the slum or whatever he said." And I said, "Wow, it shocked me a little bit because I never felt that way. I had a good family, I had fun, I was playing music, had food on the table, homemade tortillas, you know." So I never felt that way. So, you know, I never knew I had it that bad, right?
That's where the name came from, right? Were you the one that brought it in?
I didn't bring it in, but you know, it was my cinnamon also.
Yeah, well, that's what Willie told me that came from that the idea that, everybody was saying you live in the barrio and all this, and I never knew I had it so bad.
Yeah.
Gave birth to the song. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we all had a common, you know, feeling or things that we experienced during our youth
That was
because,
great.
you know, we never felt
No,
like that. I mean, it was great. You know, there was so much music around the city, the neighborhood. That was incredible.
we all had a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it, especially the music, but even the non-music. I had a blast growing up in East LA.
Yeah, I wish we had a little more business knowledge at that time, but we
Yeah,
didn't.
we
You
we
know,
had none.
yeah.
When we got our first record thing with GMP Crescendo, when we did Get Your Baby and Dance With Me, we were like 14, 15 years old, and we never signed a contract. We never even questioned it.
Yeah.
Never received a penny at the time. And it's like, but hey, we're recording, man, let's go. And that's why pretty much all the bands had that attitude. And we went and no musical business knowledge.
Yeah, that's kind of shame. We also had, I think, the opportunity to sign with RCA,
I heard.
and we didn't sign with them because our manager, you know, said no. Why he said no, I'm not sure. You know, lack of experience. Maybe he just wanted the band for himself, or maybe they just wanted Willie. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
That could have
I think,
possibly taken you to another level.
yeah. So I really don't know what happened, but that was an opportunity that we missed. But I didn't want to spend too much time on that because you'd go crazy.
Right, exactly.
Hey, keep
Um,
going.
so getting back to the record Whittier Boulevard,
Mhm.
that was a big hit in Los Angeles, maybe in Southern California, but it was like in the top five, I remember. Uh, if I find the chart, I'll put it up on the screen here, but
Mhm.
later. But it was up there, man. It was up there. You guys were on the charts with the Beatles and the Stones and Sinatra and James Brown, and there it was, Whittier Boulevard, the Midnighters.
Yeah,
It, did,
KRLA.
it didn't go national, but it sure, I don't know if it got regional, but it was a big hit in Los Angeles on all the big radio stations.
Somebody said we should have called it "Take a Trip Down Hollywood Boulevard" or "Take a
Yeah,
Trip Down Sunset Boulevard."
yeah,
Then maybe
yeah,
it would
true,
have
true.
caught nationally.
Right. And the song kind of was birthed out of 2120 South Michigan Avenue by the Stones.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember Benny bringing, I think, that record in, and you know, we heard it, we liked it, so that was the inspiration for that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who thought of the name Whittier Boulevard, as a matter of fact.
I think Benny told me um, that the Stones heard about it because it had the same bass line, very similar.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't file suit or anything. They just thought, hey, we got that from somewhere else. And, it's like, it wasn't an issue. Jump, jive, and harmonize.
Mhm.
Chili con Solo. What was that about? I don't even think I've heard that.
That was Romeo brought that song while he was in the army. He composed it. It was more Latin jazz towards that. I think he was on leave or from the army. He brought it over, and then we played it. I think we recorded it on a 45, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it says Whittier Records, 1967. You guys were kind of, getting very cultural there because you got Chile con Sol, and the flip side was Tu Despedida. So you had something in Spanish.
Yeah, that was a bolero. For that, I think we got George Dominguez's dad with his mariachi group and violins to come in and do the background
Nice.
for that. We even did a ballad to Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah. And also, you guys did a song called Chicano Power,
Yeah, that was another song I think Romeo brought in while he was in the army. He came home and we recorded that.
Was it an instrumental?
Instrumental, yeah. No, I mean, he was home on leave when he brought that song. We recorded it, then he went back to his base in Texas.
Okay.
That's funny because Romeo got drafted in 66 and he got out in 68. I got drafted in 68 and I got out in 70. So after Romeo got in the army from 68, I think myself and George Dominguez did all the horn lines. We harmonized together at that time, and not only on the recordings, but at the gigs. We did other songs that had horn parts. So me and George used to harmonize together and do the horn parts. And then a little bit later, Willie picked up the trombone.
Right, I remember that.
So I'd show him the fingerings and the melody, and then he'd play the horn.
Valve trombone.
Valve trombone, yeah.
Here's a song called Breakfast on the Grass. What's the deal on that one?
That was, I think Roy was the inspiration for that, and Beatlemania and all that. He brought in, the chord changes, and everybody just went along. And that time I was playing keyboard, as a matter of fact. I played the organ on that and keyboard on some of the other songs. At that time, I think Ronnie had left the group. So it was just myself. I was doubling on keyboard, on sax, and I used to play two saxes at the same time. I'd be playing two saxes and then two saxes.
Whatever it took, right?
Whatever it took, yeah.
No, this also probably had the implication of breakfast on the grass, meaning marijuana.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because it's 1967, Summer of Love, the hippie thing.
Yeah.
So it just goes, your band's history is similar to all of ours.
Yeah.
That we evolved from the R&B and doo-wop into the British invasion, into the psychedelic, into the hippie thing, and then the Chicano culture thing. We all just kind of moved with what was going on.
Yeah. So did we. So
yeah. And all the bands pretty much did that.
Yeah.
But you can see that in these recordings, how they evolve into sort of different styles. And you can see the evolution. Speaking of the records with the Midniters, you guys made a record with Little Ray called Loretta. And the flip side was My Girl, which was a switch on My Guy by Mary Wells.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do can take me away from my girl. He changed it to My Girl. And it's a very professional, great sounding record. That came out way back in probably 64 on the Impact label. I still have the record. But I remember digging the record when it came out. And on Loretta, Willie G singing the backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Loretta.
Loretta, oh Loretta, whatever. Great record. Did you guys do that at Stereo Masters also, or where was that done?
No, I think that was a different studio, somewhere in the South Central or somewhere that side of town. And I think it was Lil Ray got that studio to record. So that was not at Stereo Masters.
Mm-hmm. That was a good record. So you guys made 4 albums. You had the Midniters, Whittier Boulevard on Chattahoochee in 1965, Special Delivery, Whittier Records 1966, Unlimited, Whittier Records 1967, and Giants in 1967. And you were on all the albums, right?
Oh, correct. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great time recording. In the beginning, it was just 2-track,
That's right.
They went up to 8 or whatever.
It was slow, 2 to 4 to 8. Let's see,
Yeah.
2-track was early 60s, 4-track was mid 60s, and late 60s, 8-track came out. Ooh, 8 tracks. Then 16-track early 70s, 24, and now digital, and everybody has a million tracks. But we had to do
Yeah.
it with 2-track, man. We all had to be right. One guy makes a bad mistake, let's do it over. That gave a lot of intensity, and I think that's why a lot of those records from Elvis to whoever, and the early Beatles, it was like, hey, let's all kick ass, and everybody was, their awareness
Yeah.
was heightened, and man,
Yeah. Recently, I did a recording session where it was like that. They had everything was live. At least the horn section was live. They placed you here, there, and they had one mic up here on top, and they took everything analog, and the engineer was in another room somewhere upstairs.
right.
It was the Sacred Souls or something like that was the name of the band. And that was interesting because they're all going back to analog, all going
Yeah,
back to live
absolutely. A lot
recording.
of young people are doing that, but it was a way more exciting way to record, huh? I mean, because like I said, everybody's like into it, and let's do our best
Yeah.
right now, and
It might not,
that's why
it
you get the
might,
magic. You get the magic if you got 1,000 takes, and you can put parts together and fly things in. It just takes that intensity away and some of that magic.
yeah, it might not have been absolutely perfect, but it
Yeah,
sounded great.
yeah, yeah. That's why even like on Beatle records and certainly on Dylan records, there's mistakes. There's bad chords, there's whatever, the words get wrong. But again, it had the magic, and they go, hey, that's the take.
Yeah, it's the magic, the
Yeah,
vibrations.
that's right. Nowadays, people can make everything perfect with pitch correction and
Yeah.
quantizing. It's like anybody could sound perfect now, but back in the old days, we had to do it the real way.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of
Yeah.
fun too.
So Ronnie Figueroa, he's kind of a mystery. So he was a big part of the band in the mid 60s, played on Whittier Boulevard. Isn't he the one that said Arriva, Arriva?
Yeah,
Stuff.
Ronnie Figueroa, yeah.
Yeah.
But he left. He wanted to pursue other things in his life, and he's still around. I think he might have be living in Lake Tahoe, the last I heard.
As I was saying, he might be. It's kind of a mystery.
Yeah,
People aren't sure where he is, but he just kind of disappeared.
he always did his own way of, doing things and being. But we did miss him, but he didn't want to stay. So that's when I took over keyboards.
Mhm.
And then when Romeo got out of the army, he took over keyboards, and then I got drafted. I think the last recording before I got drafted, I think was maybe Going Out of My Head with Al Anaya,
Oh, Ellen,
and,
yeah.
and yeah, and a couple of other recordings we did, just before I left for the army.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was interesting because I got my notice, and I guess I could have fought it, but I think in 1968 I didn't know where the band was going. Uh, Things didn't look too good, so I said I'm going to go, maybe get away from music, but I didn't. I wound up in the army band,
I was going to ask you that.
and I wound up stationed in San Francisco at the Presidio.
Wow,
It
nice.
was great duty because I was in the band, the concert band, the jazz band, whatever. We'd always get guys from Cold Blood. They're, brass players would come in and sit in. Tower Power brass players come in,
Wow,
sit in. And the city itself, San Francisco, there was so much music up there. I got to listen to Cannonball Adderley and
wow.
Cold Blood, and all those bands were up there. It was pretty great. Plus, I got to play, for the Officers Club, and I think they'd fly us to some other base, and we'd play there, fly us back. Did all the country fairs, parades, and uh, for me it was good. For a lot of the other guys, it wasn't. It was tragic.
Yes.
One thing I didn't like was playing posthumous awards. You play for the families that lost loved
Jeez.
ones. You'd be playing for them, but
Mhm.
but I thank God I was lucky, or somebody was watching over me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to see Nixon.
Oh, in
He came
person?
to the base one day.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but it was a lot of it's amazing. And for a while, I lived on Haight and Ashbury,
Wow. Was
right
that
by the
before it
Philly.
went hippie or during the time it was hippie?
No, during when I was drafted, when I was
Whoa.
there, because a lot of the guys had apartments off base.
Hmm.
So I did that for a while, not too long, because I said, nah, I didn't have enough money or whatever. So I went back to the barracks. But for a while, yeah, I was living right there in the middle of
Wow. And you
all
had to
the
avoid the marijuana because you were in the service, right? Or not right?
One time, me and this friend of mine wore short shirts with the plant right here to in the army base, and we got in trouble for that. Not a lot of trouble. Guy shouldn't be wearing to take that off, Yeah. But it was one time I was in a band, and this band was great because they had symphonic players. All the players in that joined the army to get out of going to Nam. Me, I was drafted, and they sent me up there. Who knows, But I remember one time when they're having demonstrations up there in San Francisco with the flower children and all that. They actually got the band members and said, "Okay, you guys are going on riot duty."
Whoa, whoa.
So can you imagine the
Did you
band?
go? Were you one of them?
Luckily, I was one of them, but luckily they called us off after the riots calmed down, so we didn't have to go after all. That was that was amazing.
I was up there. I went up to Haight-Ashbury in '67. Me and my
Mm.
friend and bass player Rick Rosas. We went up there in '67, and man, that was the one year, the Summer of Love, and because on Haight-Ashbury that year they didn't have any cars, couldn't go down the street, right? It was just people wall to wall through the street, hippies passing out joints, the old cliched girls coming up to you with a flower or whatever. And we felt like, wow, the human race is evolving. It's no longer going to be racist. It's going to be peaceful. No, it's worse now than it was then before
Yeah.
that. But it was for a while there. There was a little hope of a better humanity. But anyway, it was a great vibe, and the next year we went back, it was gone. Like a year later, drug dealers, no hippies. I mean,
Yeah,
that year
it
was the
changed.
one that was amazing, and I went up there that year.
Yeah, it changed dramatically.
Yeah.
But during that time, I always used to fly back home. One of the guys had a pilot's license, so we used to rent a plane.
Oh
I used to
wow.
fly back home on the weekends. I used to play with the Midniters
Oh
at the
wow.
Mardi Gras.
Oh, the Mardi Gras. I remember that downtown.
Yeah, I used to go there, and one time I went back there, and the whole band was different. Jimmy Espinosa had left, and Romeo was there, and they had a whole different cast of characters.
The cast of characters.
And he left the group. Jimmy left the group, so I came during one of my weekend visits, and they still had Roy and Romeo and George, but they had Jimmy Mess on bass and Freddie Mess on drums and Ernie Mess on sax too.
A whole lot of mess ups were there.
Yeah, yeah, that was I guess late 68, 69. I got out of
So
the army in 1970, and when I came back, I talked with Romeo, and then we got back together with you know with Romeo, myself, Tony Garcia, Bobby Loya, Jerry Santana, Aaron Ballesteros, George Dominguez, and Hank Castro, I think, believe,
right,
yeah. Yeah, so we kept going, for
right,
2 or 3 years.
right. But before we go into the future, let's go back.
Uh-huh.
Let's go all the way back to you mentioned Jimmy Espinosa. We got to talk about that because he replaced Benny Lopez.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Benny was on the record Whittier Boulevard. He was on part of that album, and then Jimmy came in and he took it from there, and he was on all the rest of the albums. And do you remember how he came in and how that happened?
Yeah, let's see. Let me try and remember this because Benny Lopez had left for, I guess he didn't like the way the band was going, or management or whatever. And then Jimmy came in. Jimmy knew Willie and some of the guys. He was from Salesian too. So he came in, and I don't remember if he auditioned. I think he just came in and started playing. I talked to him privately, and I got a feeling for what he was like, and he was a pretty smart guy. He wanted to be in the band. I think he wanted to be in the band a long time before because he knew Romeo. So he pretty much fit the band. The band did change into a little harder rock. The Beatles also.
Let's talk about the Beatles. Now, I always bring this up because there were many bands that played Beatles songs during that era in East LA, and there were some that didn't play them at all, and some that did a few. The Midniters, in talking to Willie, and from my own observation, you guys tended to play more Stones than Beatles because they were more R&B based. But you did do some Beatles, didn't you?
Yeah, we used to play And I Love Her, and I think we recorded Yesterday.
Okay.
And what was that other rocker? Some other rocker we used to play.
Was it Slow Down?
Slow Down, yeah. Slow Down.
Do that.
That was the one. Yeah, we used to do those Beatles songs, yeah.
Okay.
But the edge of the Stones, I think, inspired us a little more. Yeah. Even though Benny and Roy just loved the Beatles, to no end.
Well, people used to call Benny, they thought he looked like John Lennon.
John Lennon, yeah.
His haircut and everything, and his nose. And then
Roy, of course.
Roy was Ringo. They called him Ringo. He looked like Ringo a little bit.
Yeah.
Enough.
And we did do a project with Roy in the later years called Juicy Roy.
Okay. I remember that.
And he has a few recordings out there. And it was the same, it was myself and Romeo and Tony and Bobby Loya. And I think he had Bruce Goss on guitar, and I forget what drummer, but it was a pretty good project.
Yeah. Well, I went to Garfield. Roy and I were at Garfield at the same time. We did this one show together where we did Act Naturally. I was on lead guitar and harmony. He was singing the lead with a cowboy hat. They're going to put me in the movies.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Oh, my God. So let's see. So before we move on to the future again, now back in the days again, in the mid-'60s, you guys were so popular. You were playing every weekend. You were leaving town a lot. And often you'd have 2-3 gigs in one night.
Oh, yeah.
And then sometimes you'd have to get on a little small plane and fly up to Bakersfield or something. Were you on some of those flights?
Yeah, I was on those flights. One time we played at the Montebello Ballroom. They drove us to the Almani Airport, got on the plane, played in Palm Springs, flew back, and then drove to the Alexandria Hotel and played a set there.
In downtown LA.
Downtown LA, all in one night.
It's hard to believe you could do 3 shows in one night with those distances. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we'd ever be able to do it again, but.
Right. Staying in the mid-'60s again, you guys did some television shows. I remember you were on Shebang and some of the local shows. Do you remember any of those?
Oh, yeah, I remember Shebang, Groovy, 9th Street West, I guess Hullabaloo.
Lloyd Thaxton?
Lloyd Thaxton with the finger people. Yeah, we did all those shows, and I'd come home with makeup on, I said, I better get in the house before anybody sees me.
Yeah, right. This is East LA, you can't have makeup on. Not then, at least.
Yeah, those shows were a lot of fun. They were interesting. As a matter of fact, we did Shebang at Angel Stadium.
Wow.
I think it was 1966, maybe. It was close to the opening of the stadium when we played on the dugout, on top of the dugout for a Shebang show. I think they had Martha and the Vandellas and a whole bunch of artists. That was interesting.
Was that the one that had like Herman's Hermits and the Turtles and people like that?
Oh, no, that was the show at the Rose Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the first large shows where they had like 40,000 people.
Wow.
And we played there with Herman's Hermits, Dave Clark Five, Love and Spoonful, the Turtles, you know, so many bands, and there we were. We're playing Whittier Boulevard.
Yeah, there's video of that too, right? I've seen it. You guys, you think are playing Love Special Delivery there?
Yeah,
From
Love
there?
Special Delivery. We played it right there. That was interesting.
And that was in a, go ahead.
Also interesting. What I think we were one of the first rock bands to play the Hollywood Bowl back in I think that was 1967 also. And it was the title was The Bowl Goes Latin.
Oh, cool.
And we were included with they had the Mariachi Los Camperos, they had Los Indios Trabajadores, uh, Lola Beltran was there,
Wow.
and us.
You guys are the only rock group.
We were the only rock group. So it's interesting because they said, no, play what you play. You know, you don't have to play
Yeah.
Mexican or Latin, play what you
Right.
play.
That's cool. Here's a flyer I wanted to talk to you about. You guys played at the Big Union Hall with them, Van Morrison, them, Gloria. Do you remember that gig?
Yeah, of course I remember that. Yeah. That was a crazy show.
Wow.
I remember we played, and I think Willie and George or somebody went over there and picked them up and brought them to the Big Union.
Wow.
And there they were, you know, them playing.
And you watched them, you got to see them.
Yeah, we were playing with them.
Did they sound great? Did Van Morrison sound great? Must have.
Oh yeah, they all sounded great. You know, I remember. I think they borrowed somebody's guitar to play up on stage.
Oh, really?
The guitar player, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that show also had Little Ray and the Progressions, the Prophets, the Ambertones, the Sisters, the Impalas, the Runabouts, and the Righteous Rhythms. June 11th, probably 1965. Big Union Hall. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. Oh, and the Runabouts. I remember the Runabouts.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was, I think in the early 80s, there was about a year or 2 years where I don't think Midniters were playing. And I joined this band called Formula Seis. And we played, you know, all the Mexican music, the corridos, the cumbias and everything. And I did that circuit for a while. That was interesting because we got to travel. They flew us to Arizona and different places and played all kinds of music. That was very interesting. And at that time, I decided to get the dreaded 9-to-5 job.
Dreaded.
Yeah, I became a Superior Court clerk. I swore in the witnesses and took testimony, and I did that when things were slow. So
and rocked out on weekends.
And rocked on the weekends, even the weekdays.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then later on, the Midniters, we got together again with Romeo and Jimmy.
Right.
We reformed the band, then we started playing again.
But we don't want to leave the 60s yet. There's too much stuff.
Okay.
We got to talk about the West Coast East Side Review at the Shrine Auditorium, that big show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
1965, February 21st, with the Atlantics, the Blendells, the Blue Satins, Cannibal the Headhunters, Ronnie the Casuals, Mark and the Escorts, Heartbreakers, Jaguars and the Solace Brothers, Little Ray, the Little Heartbreakers, the Medallions, the Midniters, the Pageants, the Premiers, the Four Queens, the Romancers, the Sisters, and the Slauson Brothers. I remember that show like it was yesterday, being on that stage, and the Hullabaloo was Dave Hull was the host, and I remember seeing you guys there, of course.
Oh yeah, I remember driving up to the venue and all sorts of pandemonium going on.
Oh,
screaming people.
Oh, it was during Beatlemania, and I remember seeing you guys after the show at the stage door, and girls were screaming like for the Beatles and everything.
Yeah, that was incredible to me. That well, I imagine our friends, people needed somebody to
Yeah, exactly.
cheer for it, root for it, and say, ah,
Little Ray said they needed our own Beatles,
yeah.
brown Beatles.
And that's the day where we wore beetle boots
Oh yeah,
and the suits and
and the
long
hair,
hair.
and the hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a good one. A flyer, a St. Alphonsus Auditorium, May 8th, I believe 1965. The Midniters with Willie G, the Four Queens, Ricky Shade, the Slauson Brothers, my band Mark and the Escorts, the Impalas Band, and the Sisters. And up on the logo, it has the Midniters masks. So I don't know, you may have still been wearing the mask then, or they just started using it as a logo.
Yeah, I don't remember how long we wore the masks, but we did wear them for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it sort of faded out and we were just playing.
Did you guys used to throw them into the audience at the end?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, they went crazy, diving for masks.
Yeah, talk about marketing, huh?
Oh yeah, smart. And here's a couple more flyers I'd like to refer to. I mean, my bands, Mark and the Escorts and the Men from Sound, played with the Midniters many, many, many times at all the venues. And I have most of the flyers, but I've shown them on other episodes, so I just want to
Mhm.
feature a couple here. But another real memorable one was at the Big Union with Dobie Gray when he had the big hit "In Crowd." I'm in with the in crowd.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And for some reason, even though the Ambertones were there, the Exotics, Runabouts, Essence, and Impalas, we got the assignment to back up Dobie Gray, the Men from Sound. And amazingly, we were just 15, 16 years old, and the great Dobie Gray, this adult star, came to our rehearsal during the day before. And we rehearsed with Dobie Gray, and we did the In Crowd. I remember we did Hitchhike by Marvin Gaye, and we backed him up, a bunch of little kids, and it worked out. We got some photos from that. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a great band.
Thank you.
Great band.
So that's a good memory. And then another one I wanted to highlight is the another St. Alphonsus. And this one is the Midniters with their new release, Whittier Boulevard and Evil Love, Bill Willie G, and then the Four Queens, all girls band, Ricky Shade. I don't remember him. Do you remember Ricky Shade?
No, I don't.
He's been in a couple of flyers here. The Slauson Brothers, George Ochoa. George wound up being one of our lead singers in the Men from Sound later. Mark and the Escorts. And they made a mistake on the flyer. It says, "With the return of Farmer John." I think the Salas brothers made that record with the Jaguars. We had Get Your Baby Out at the time. And then the Impalas Band and the Sisters. So that's a cool gig as well. I don't know if you remember that specific gig, but it's a cool one.
Not specifically, but there's been so many.
Yeah, oh God, tell me about it. We need to talk about Eddie Torres. You were talking about promotion. He was your manager. Let's talk about Eddie.
Yeah, well, Eddie, he was more like a coach, He got you going, got you inspired, and he got us to work together. And he was also somehow connected with the CYO, so we got jobs there, and with the car clubs, and he was an ex-Marine, so he he did a lot of promotion with the posters, and he got us a lot of gigs, and he got us on the record label, Chattahoochee, and everything was going fine. But I think we can only go so far without more guidance, business guidance and everything. So that's when things sort of.
But after Chattahoochee, he started Whittier Records, didn't he?
Yeah, started Whittier Records, and we recorded a lot under Whittier Records, which is supposed to be all of ours. All of the members were supposed to be owners of Whittier Boulevard.
Right.
But that didn't go too far. Those things happen. I mean, Eddie was a good guy.
Yeah. I got to work with Eddie Torres in, I think it was 1989. I did a EP and he was involved, and boy, I got to know him pretty darn well. And boy, he's a real hustler and a hard worker, man. I remember he told me that, he wakes up in the morning, he works all day, all night into the wee hours, and he works. He says, basically till he passes out. He literally say, I just work till I die. Boom, he falls asleep, wakes up and starts again. He probably slept 3, 4 hours a night if that, you know.
Yeah, he did get some. I mean, we played. He brought Santana to play with us at East LA College, Cheech and Chong, and the Midniters. You know, we did a lot of up north in Bakersfield with Santana and groups like that. So he did promote a lot and bring.
Oh, real hustler.
Yeah,
So yeah, he did so much for the Midniters and helped with the total success.
yeah.
How about Huggy Boy? Did you play at the Golden Gate Theater for Huggy Boy and some of those things?
Oh, that's right. It was another one. He played a lot of our songs. The very last song he played when they were changing format at KRLA, the very last song was that song.
Very appropriate.
I remember that. The very last song on KRLA under that format was that song. And it was the end of an era, I think.
Yeah. Did you play at the Golden Gate Theater?
We played at the Golden Gate Theater. One thing I remember is I think Willie had left, and I think Al and I was started to sing with us.
Yes.
So when we played at the Golden Gate Theater, everybody says, "Where's Willie? Where's Willie?" Actually, some guys got on stage and wanted to, you know, bang us out because we didn't have Willie or something.
Oh, where's Willie? Now, what about the Boulevard Theater? We played at the Boulevard Theater in front of the
Oh
screen.
yeah,
Did you play there too?
yeah. I played at Boulevard Theater.
down the street.
Boy was there, and Bobby Torres was there with his band. the
Runabouts.
Yeah, we did a lot of. Actually, we did a lot of recording in theaters. We recorded Everybody Needs Somebody in either the Boulevard Theater or the theater on Indiana and Whittier. There was a theater there that we used.
Willie told me it was that one, I think.
Yeah. And there was another one on Olympic, the Verne Theater, I believe.
And I think
Yeah,
you recorded that song, Everybody Needs Somebody, like on a real basic tape recorder. It wasn't even like a studio, right?
Correct. It was a reel to reel. I think George Dominguez's brother had gotten back from overseas and he had the reel to reel and the whole thing. So we just sit up there and we recorded it.
I wonder how many microphones they used. Probably not too many.
Not too many. I remember because I think I was playing keyboard at that time. Yeah, I was playing keyboard at that time. So, one mic in the middle, one mic over here and over there, and that was about it.
An overhead or something, basic stuff.
Something like that. And I guess
Sounded good. Sounded good.
Theater had natural
Acoustics.
or, so it made it sound pretty good.
Yeah, it sounded great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Al and I, so we should also talk about the vocal thing. So Willie was the vocalist, from the beginning through into the late 60s. But at one point when he left, I remember Al and I coming in, who had been the lead singer for the Impalas.
Correct. Yeah, he came in and he has a very good voice, a very strong voice, a very good voice. So I think he fit in, and we did some recordings with him, and I think he did well. Things were different. I mean, the group changes, like a team changes, but you try to keep the same spirit, the same intensity, the same, groove that we had before. And I think he did a good job.
And then did Hank Castro come in next, or when did he come in?
Yeah, Hank Castro came in when I came back from the Army in 1970, and I spoke with Romeo. We got the group together, and then Hank came in at that time. And he did play with us quite a few years. And we did have the big brass section then. We had 5 horns.
Wow.
We actually got 2 trumpets, 2 saxes, and a trombone. And it was a big brass section. So we did all those songs, the Tower of Power songs and our own songs. And that was a great band. And we did we did some TV. We did a TV show. It was a marathon. It was televised, I guess nationally for sickle cell, I think, it was a D's going around at that time, and we had that band, and it was it was a tremendous band. I like that band, but we did that for 2 or 3 years, but it just wasn't going well, the gigs for some reason. I think Benny was in that band too, also a little bit later.
Benny Lopez?
Yeah, a little bit later after, I think we had another guy, Mike Pecanic or something on bass. But yeah, he was in the band. That was the lineup with that band.
No, you were in the band in the early 70s too, right?
Yeah, I was in the band in the early 70s up until, the 80s when they stopped for a while. Then I was out of the band, I think, for a year, 2 years I don't know why, but I came back into the band and I've been there ever since.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody's played with the Midniters more nights than you have, and from the get-go.
No, other than Willie, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, no more than Willie, because Willie left the band and
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
you
that's
played
true.
gigs with all the other players
Continuously.
through the decades.
Yeah.
And Willie would come back once in a while for special appearances, but I'm sure
Yeah.
you got more nights logged in. Were you in the band in the early 70s when Anthony Beret took George Dominguez's place?
Yeah, he was in the band for a while. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Anthony was in the band and
As a matter of fact, I've even seen a picture, and I don't know if you were in the band, sometime in the mid 70s when my old bass player Rick Rosas even played with you guys a little bit. I don't know if you were in the band then.
oh yeah, he did. Yeah. I think I was. I think I
And
was.
wasn't David Torres in a little bit too?
Yeah, David Torres was also in the band, the Midniters. Yeah.
Great musician.
Remember him playing the Chapman stick
Oh yeah.
with the
He had already been in Tierra,
Mhm.
and then he later joined Pocho Sanchez.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of musicians in that band. Bobby Rodriguez was even in the band for a while. Midniters,
Trumpet player.
trumpet player, and
Bobby Loya too.
Bobby Loya is in the band. He's playing with us now. Bobby Loya. And
Were you ever in the band when Bobby Navarrete was in there on sax?
I think I was out for a year or 2 years. I came back in, and then we were both in the band. That's when we had two sax players and a trumpet player.
And in recent years, well, we did a few things together on the same bill I can bring up. In 2008, we did that Trini Lopez special.
Oh, that's right.
At the Orpheum. At the Orpheum. And that was great, man, because it was the Midniters with Willie G. It was Tierra, and with both Salas brothers performing. It was El Chicano. It was the Greg Raleigh band doing the Santana stuff. And was there somebody else? Oh, and Trini Lopez.
Yeah.
And I got to sing a song with Tierra. And that was a hell of an experience, man. What do you remember about that day?
Oh yeah, I remember that. We went to the Orpheum Theater, and I think funny though, they said, "Oh, come on downstairs, get your makeup on," and everybody said, "I don't need any makeup. Let's just go on.
We don't need no stinking makeup,
man. We're just gonna go up there and play."
Yeah, so you didn't put any on,
and we did. It was a good show.
Yeah,
it was an amazing show. But I wish they would have played it more on.
I know.
PBS.
Yeah, I know. They played it a few times. I have a good copy of it, man, if you ever want to see it. And at that time, I don't know when, but Bobby Robles joined the Midniters at some point, and he was playing that night, and he's still playing with the Midniters, but he's a fantastic guitar player.
Oh, yeah, great. He's might have even been in the 1990s. We did some shows with Willie and Bobby Robles, and a different bass player, a different keyboard player. I think for Eddie Torres, did some Eddie Torres shows back then. So I think he was in since the 90s, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So anyway, that Trini Lopez special was great, and we were on the bill together on that. And then we did that thing at the a theater in Echo Park where they were showing that play, Evangeline, the Queen of Make-Believe, which was
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had a
which was
small
written
band.
by Louis Perez and a couple of ladies, and it was a musical, and it had a lot of um, Los Lobos music in it. And they invited me and Willie G to perform before out in the lobby. Remember that?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was backed up by the group Gava.
Hmm.
And I remember doing Get Your Baby by Mark and the Escorts, my song I'm Brown, and one of my dad's, I think, Chuco Suaves. And then you guys came on, and I think you did Love Special Delivery and some stuff. That was a cool show, huh?
Yeah, it was. I think we had a small group. I think myself and Willie and Bobby Robles and his son on
Oh, you know
drums.
what? You know what I think happened? I think Kava backed you guys up too. It was the
Hmm.
same band, but it was just you and Willie and maybe one other guy that you brought.
Hmm. Wow.
You remember that? Because I do remember that because I remember we rehearsed the day before with that band, and you were there too.
Yeah, some studio
Yeah,
on San Fernando Road or something, somewhere
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. But it was a good show, and it was a good play too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so those are fun events too. Getting back to the vocalist, so then in the early 2000s, Greg Esparza became the lead vocalist for quite a while.
Yeah. I think it was 2007, I believe.
And he did more than 10 years. I mean, probably closer
Yeah.
to 15, but I thought he was an excellent vocalist for that.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's an excellent vocalist. Uh, I think he was also going to school at the time and pursuing his career in education too.
Mhm. Right. Oh,
So I
yeah.
think,
He got his
yeah,
master's and now he's teaching at Cal State LA.
yeah. So that's that's the way he went. But
Mhm.
yeah, he was an excellent singer, front man. Yeah, very good vocalist. So we've had had a lot of good singers and a lot of good musicians in the band.
Yeah. I heard that even, I think, what Charlie Coda sang a little while too.
That's right, King Charles. That's right, King Charles sang with the band too
Yeah.
during that time.
Well,
I
I bet you nobody's ever made a list of everybody who's ever played with the Midniters. Quite a list.
for at least for a while. Everywhere I go, somebody always walks up. I used to play with the Midniters. And,
Yeah, I don't remember you.
okay. Some people say we used to play in the same show and stuff, but other people say, my uncle was played with the Midnighters.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
but
it's getting like, remember when we were kids, everybody said, oh, my grandfather rode with Pancho Villa.
yeah.
Everybody had an ancestor that rode us up out there, Pancho Villa. Okay. Now it's
as a
like,
matter as
huh?
a matter of fact, my grandfather was a
He did?
baker. Was a baker
Yeah.
at that time. And that's why my dad became a chef. So there were stories that he baked for Pancho Villa, but I don't know.
Could be, but now he says, I played with the Midniters. Oh, geez. Um, what else can we cover? Can you think of anything else?
Well, there was something I'd like to mention. I
Okay.
think
Okay.
Romeo passed away in
Oh,
2006.
yes, we got to talk about Romeo. That's a whole subject.
Before that date, we started a recording. We called it the East LA Philharmonic.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
And that was mine and Romeo's project. We started that recording in, I think, 2003, 2004. And we recruited Willie and some of the guys. I think we got some of the best musicians in East LA, the Banda brothers, Bobby Rodriguez, Bobby Loya, Tony Garcia, Ray Ponson, David Torres.
Wow.
Everybody, wanted to be on that project, and we were so happy. We started it, but unfortunately, Romy got ill at that time. And before we could make more progress or finish, he passed away in 2006. At the same time, my wife got also ill, and she passed away in 2008.
Mm.
So then I said, I made up my mind, we're going to finish the project. So myself with Willie and some of the guys got together and we finished the album. It was like a tribute album. And all the arrangements, except for 2 or 3 songs, are Romeo's arrangements. And his song, Quince para Tomar, was an original. And we used all as much as we could from him, and we finished the project. And it was called the East LA Philharmonic. And we
Via
did
the THEE.
yeah.
Perfect.
And Philharmonic, because it was a gathering of all these different musicians. And we did play a few shows, and we did play I don't know if it was PBS. It was a Christmas show they do every year in the county. We played there, the East LA Philharmonic, and we played for East LA College. And but I mainly did it for a tribute CD, and not really to go out there and, perform all that much. Although a few of the guys said we should have, but
Were any of the performances videotaped?
I think there's a video. I may have a video of one of the Christmas shows we did for the county. I will look for it. If I have it, I'll send it to you.
I'd love to see that, man. And I remember, I think I had a copy of the album too. I have to look for that too.
Okay. Yeah, and I also did it as a tribute to my wife too, because she, under her urging, she said, "Larry, you got to finish it, because who knows what's going to happen in the future."
Absolutely.
And it did happen. So I'm glad we're finally able to finish it.
So let's talk more about Romeo Prado. I had that in my notes that we should just talk about it because he was so significant, because he was a great arranger. He arranged a lot of your guys' songs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Romeo was the kind of guy that was always ahead of the curve. He was always in style, one of the latest dishes. Sometimes we used to call him the galloping gourmet. He used to find these restaurants where, were great food. But in the beginning, Romeo did, the sound was different with a trombone and sax for us. I think it was slightly different than what was going on then with the other bands. So that made us a difference. And in the beginning, he did arrange a lot of the 45s in the beginning.
And did we mention his last name? I mean, Romeo Prado, of course.
Romeo Prado. Uh-huh.
And did he play a slide trombone?
No, he played a valve trombone.
Only valve?
Yeah. Originally, he was playing trumpet.
Okay.
So then he went to a valve trombone, and then he played what they call a super bone or flugelbone, which is a combination of a trombone and a flugelhorn, and it has the valves. And that provided a big sound also. So he did most of the arranging until 66 when he left. And then we were down to, I think, 6 members. We didn't replace him. That's when, Willie took a bone. And that's when that's when George and myself started harmonizing and doing the horn parts and, playing keyboard and sax and all that stuff. Until 68 when Romeo came back. When he came back, I left. Which was weird. We did some recordings with a big band. And then when I left, they started playing, I think, the Mardi Gras. And they were there at the club for a long time. And then all the changes took place with the Mesa Brothers and all that. And then when I came back in 70, then we started the band again.
Wow.
I think we talked about that, all the changes, but all the traveling and the good times.
Wow. I mean, when you think of from the Gentiles till today, what's that, 60 years or whatever? It's amazing that the history, and it's never been really put together in one story before, in a way.
No,
it should be maybe a book or something, but
yeah, I wish I would have had a chance to talk to Danny Lamont before he passed more about the history, because I think he would have contributed some more insight.
Yes. As a matter of fact, let's talk about Danny Lamont a little more too. He deserves it. And he just recently passed, of course. But great drummer. Apparently, you said he was in the Gentiles and the Midniters, but he also played a stint with El Chicano in their prime.
What? Yeah, and the Vesuvians with Bobby Hernandez,
Yes.
Bobby Cochran,
And
and
Mickey and the Invaders.
Vic and the Invaders. Yeah, it's a great history. But you can tell it started with Ceballos and all that. And it just grew and changed, grew and changed, grew and changed all these years, until now.
Yeah.
Now we're doing some shows. We try and do the same arrangements that Romeo had, or some of the original arrangements. Try to put out the music that people remembered, but and hopefully they accept it. It is different, but we do our best to keep the spirit alive, so to say.
And you're back with Hank Castro as lead singer.
Yeah, Hank is back. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's doing a good job.
Mhm.
Doing a good job. Yeah.
And you recently play a lot with the Blue Satins, who got back together.
Oh yeah, that's
Now, the
right.
Blue Satins were one of the best and most popular bands in the 60s in East LA. Huge.
Yeah, they were.
And they had the
They were.
horns.
Yeah, they were our rivals, right?
Yeah,
Blue
absolutely. They had what, like 12 members? I remember we jokingly used to say the Blue Satins Army because there were so many guys on stage. They were really good. And they got back together a few years ago, whatever, and they've got Gilbert Stokes on lead vocal.
Yeah.
Nice tenor voice, very high,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Uh-huh.
He sang with El Chicano briefly in the 90s,
Yeah.
and great singer. And then you got Danny Diaz on guitar, great guitar player.
Hmm.
Danny played
Yeah.
for years with Chico and a lot of other.
Yeah. All the other groups. Yeah, and then also Robert Perez, the original sax player, and Frank on bass, one of the original guys. It's a good group.
Who's on drums?
We have Gary. He's a retired police officer. He wasn't with the originals, but he's he's a good drummer.
One of the
Gary.
original guys, was it Mesquita?
Frank. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Frank
I'm gonna interview him soon too. I spoke to him on the phone. He's an ex-police officer too.
Yeah.
I wonder if he brought in the drummer.
Oh, the drummer, Gary. He brought the drummer in, Gary.
Another police officer, as you said.
Yeah.
You guys better not be holding.
No, we're all clean.
Remember that? Oh, he's holding, man. In the 60s, boy. Gotta be careful, especially with marijuana.
Yeah.
Go to jail for it.
Yeah, but I can see it's been quite a trip.
Down Whittier Boulevard and beyond.
Down Whittier Boulevard, it's still going. They're cruising again.
Yeah. Is there anything else you think we missed?
Not really. And I could maybe go on, but so many memories that some slip by. I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
I'll be sitting there in a little while. I said, "Oh, doggone it! I didn't
Exactly.
mention this."
I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about everybody we want to talk about, like we said, like Romeo, like Danny Lamont, like George Salazar. These various people talked about, and we did talk about each one pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, Roy Marquez. Roy Marquez was a chord man. He
Rhythm.
learned all these chords from his dad. Remember, we used to go to his house and we used to sit down and listen to his dad playing guitar and singing, all the standards.
Mm-hmm.
So Roy got a lot from that, and so did we.
Mm-hmm.
He was an interesting man too.
And he passed away, 8 years ago, a while back.
Yeah, well, while back.
Yeah, well, so many of our generation is passing. It's pretty heavy duty, but that's why it's great to talk about all this stuff to keep the stories alive, and keep them alive in that way.
Oh yeah, because Roy, Romeo, and George, and George, both Georges,
And George Dominguez.
Yeah, I remember George. I remember one time we played. Was it Boise, Idaho? Anyway, one of our first jobs was traveling up to, that territory over there, and I think we drove. Actually, I think I was in the car with George and his brother Sal. And it was during the snow time. And we're sitting in the car driving up, and all of a sudden the other car drives beside us and going, hey, we thought they were saying hi. It's no, that we were going off the road on the snow,
Holy shit.
and I said, oh man.
Was this in the 60s?
Yeah, it was in the 60s, one of our first jobs. I was
And
with Benny and Benny Lopez. And
I mean, there weren't too many, if any, Chicanos up there at the time.
no, that's
How'd that
another
happen?
thing. I guess some booking agency had the bright idea of booking us up there. But it's funny, when we got there, the whole audience is white, right?
Yeah.
We're the only brown people there. And we're thinking, oh, shoot, what's going to happen? The funny thing is, though, when we started playing, we put so much enthusiasm and heart into what we were doing that they accepted it. And they were, hey, yeah, they're great. They even walked up and said, hey, I want to hear you play sax, man. Play something on sax, So we played something on sax. And we were greeted pretty well. Not in all places, but pretty much. I don't think we came up with too much, other than the usual, name calling once in a while.
I was gonna say, was Willie G on that gig in Idaho?
Yeah, I was Benny Lopez, Willie G, George Salazar, George Dominguez, Roy, myself, and
Figueroa, was he there?
I don't remember if Ronnie was there. I know Romeo wasn't there. That's
So did you run into other problems like you're talking about? Most of the bands, ran into some racism, into some problems, but usually the great music carried the day. Like for example, Little Ray played at the Santa Monica Civic back by the premieres, and all the groups were white, all the audience was white, and they got a lot of catcalls and racist comments when they came on. But they played so great, they won over the crowd. That's
yeah, yeah. I don't
story.
remember too much cat calls in that. I do remember. I know the Casey Kasem got us a lot of jobs on like Thousand Oaks at that time and areas like that, Hawthorne, those white areas. But I think we did good. We were pretty accepted. I didn't feel that we were, anybody provoked us or we provoked them in any way. That's my feeling, my recollection.
Yeah.
So
like you say, good music conquers all. I mean, I've been in bands where, I'm playing in front of a bunch of, rednecks, and they're kind of like really looking at you weird, but you start playing good and they accept you.
Yeah, that's what's most of the case. Of course, we didn't really travel the deep south, so we didn't go through that.
Cannibal the Headhunters ran, they had to use separate bathrooms and separate water fountains and the premieres back in those days down south.
Yeah, that was tough. So we never did that, as far as I recall. No, just as well. But then Vietnam came and that changed everything.
Yeah,
a lot of our guys got drafted or went into service. A lot of guys didn't come back, but that was a change.
It broke up a lot of the bands.
Yeah, it did. And the Midniters, went through changes too. But Romeo came back and I came back, so we got through that era. But I do remember a lot of friends not coming back, and that was pretty hard.
Oh yeah. So overall, how would you sum up growing up in East LA and being part of that whole music explosion?
Well, I don't think I traded for anything else.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, it was at that time you just wanted to play, have a good time, enjoy, express yourself. And I think we did express ourselves. We had so many influences that the total product of the Midniters was an expression of all that stuff coming out. Right.
Tons of stuff.
It all came out. We had our Beatlemania. I guess we were it. Expose our fans, our friends to, on the same level as anybody else. Commercially, though, we didn't cut through that much, but locally, I think we made, we threw a pebble in the pond and hopefully it spread out, to other groups like, El Chicano, your group and other groups that did attain commercial success. Tierra, Los Lobos, They always mention us as, you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
they're Beatles. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's incredible. It's heartwarming.
yeah.
I've gotten approached a few times and said, during that time, everybody wanted to play like you. If it
Mhm.
wasn't for you, I wouldn't have taken up sax. Or
Yeah,
if it wasn't for you, I would have wound up dead or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then the big picture, that's more gratifying too.
absolutely. But you guys were popular pretty much all over Southern California, yeah, around the Southwest too, mainly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, mostly Texas, Arizona, up north, Northern California.
Where
So
there's brown people.
where there's brown people, yeah.
You start getting into the
Nevada.
Idahos and the New England and the South, it's like a whole other story. But yeah, you guys got pretty well known and you did didn't you do at least one or two national TV shows?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. A lot of the shows were nice. I think we did the Joey Bishop show
Oh
too,
wow.
a long time ago. That a lot of the shows and lately in like 2012, we did play in New Orleans at the House of Blues there for some big festival,
Mhm.
the Stomp
Mhm.
Paradise Festival or something,
Yeah.
where they bring all these groups like the Trash Man, you heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
All those groups, the end. That was in our our punk style. We were punk rockers then. Imagine that to them.
Did you play that time where it was in Echo Park about
Oh yeah,
2012, right?
yeah, we did. Yeah,
And it was us, Mark and the Escorts, the Midniters. I think we were the only Chicano East LA bands, and everybody else were punk bands, young, you know.
yeah. We
And we
played it
kicked
for.
ass. We kicked ass, and the place was packed.
Yeah, I remember it was packed. It was I think with Norton Records, I
Yes,
believe.
Northern
Oh,
Records.
yeah, that was tremendous. I still remember playing. I found a peanut.
What's the
Or,
idea of that song? Who came up with that?
I think I'm not sure if it was Willie brought it. There was an old fable or an old saying. I found the peanut
Yeah, I
and
wonder.
brought it in. And we were having fun at the recording studio. And let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. All right, we recorded it, and apparently it came a big hit with the garage bands.
Oh, that's right. That's cool. That's so cool. Same with Mark and the Escorts. Our Get Your Babies on a ton of garage band albums and Exotica and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a whole genre of garage rock.
Yeah, that's why we went to New Orleans, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun there, man. A lot of music there also.
Oh, absolutely. I've been there. It's great. And there was another gig that we did. Our first Mark and the Escorts reunion show was in 2009 in Van Nuys. And the other East LA band in the group, the other East LA band on the bill was the Ambertones. And they got back together again, most of the original Ambertones. And all the rest of the bands were punk bands. And the whole audience were young punk people. And they loved us. They loved us. And but there was one band, a female band called the Tough Titties. So we played along with the Tough Titties and people like that, people with mohawks or whatever, and we went over.
Oh, I
So
think even Charlie Munoz, I think, sang with us a few
oh,
times.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, he did a couple of shows up north, I believe. Charlie Munoz.
He was in the Ambertones back in the day and has been singing with the Cannibal and Headhunters band for a long, long, long time, even now.
Yeah, they're
A lot
doing
of
it
people,
again.
like you say, a lot of characters, man. A lot of musicians been through there.
They're all memorable in their own way.
Yeah, and unique, absolutely. So anything else you can think of, or is that it?
Oh, well, maybe that's about it. It's like I say, it's been a heck of a trip.
Yes. The Grateful Dead, they say, what a strange trip it's been. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we all have a very fine legacy to
Oh,
leave
God, yes.
behind. And these younger groups, I'm amazed. They all come out with who came out with an album exactly like our cover, but
Oh, yeah.
they're Quinones, Joey
Oh, yeah.
Quinones.
The Sinceres.
Yeah, they came out with an album cover exactly like ours, except with him in the front.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that came up, and I looked at it and said, "Wow, I mean, it didn't have, Jerry Lewis and all that, but something else. But they were in front of the marquee with about the same pose.
Well, there's a lot of bands that are sort of retro, Chicano Batman for a while. They were very
Oh,
much
yeah.
retro. They're very much the way they dressed, like we used to dress back in the late 60s. And they were still using the Farfisa organs and the old-timey, good, cool instruments, not synthesizers and all that bullshit,
Yeah. I liked them. I used to go see them a few years ago. And when they first started out, I said, wow, because they were doing interesting things rhythmically.
Yeah.
It was really nice, really good.
I saw them once as well, and they're doing really well. They're continuing to do well. They played the Coachella, and there a lot of records out there. They're doing very well. So the beat goes on, and that's the other thing, that there have been East LA groups from our day to today. It never stopped. During the punk era, there was punk groups, and so many of the sort of semi-traditional groups and the cumbia groups and East LA groups have never stopped. It's always been a scene, and there's always been bands for every decade and every genre, and it's a tremendous thing. When you look at the whole story, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, even I think the couple of years that I wasn't with the Midniters, I played with Chaos with Larry Gamboa. I don't know if you remember him, and Yesterday's Dream, I think, for a while, and all these groups. That was a lot of fun times.
And so many, there's several of them that have been together for 40 years, like Ace and In Crowd. And I mean, there's groups that Blue Sands are playing again. And it's more and more, a lot of thanks to a lot of this attention, a lot of them are starting to regroup now. They say, hey, why don't we get back together now? We're retired. Let's do some gigs.
Yeah, they're doing that. And talking about the In Crowd, that's right. I forgot we were nominated for the best instrumental of the year, I believe, in 1966, along with Herb Alpert and Ramsey Lewis. We had Whittier Boulevard. Ramsey Lewis had the In Crowd, and Herb Alpert had, I don't know, what, Tijuana Taxi or something like that. So that was interesting. The three of us were there.
Wow.
And they had it at the what used to be the Aquarius Theater.
Oh yeah.
Back then, and that was a tremendous thing to go. I remember we rented a limousine. Went up there, they dropped us off. We're dressed in. Willie was dressed in the tux, and just in case we won, he'd be ready.
Have a speech in the pocket, ready to go.
Yeah, but everybody was there, from James Brown to Levin Spoonful to anybody you can think of was there. And we were there too.
Experience, man.
Yeah, we didn't win.
Herb Alpert?
I think it was Herb Alpert, yeah. Or was it Ramsey Lewis, the In Crowd? But I know we didn't win. So
that's what you do know. Hey, what an honor. What about East LA guys going uptown and being in that event was fantastic. Be nominated.
Yeah, that's yeah, we hung around with a lot of those, the Red Bone, a bit, and on the Sunset Strip. I remember went to these mansions. Raindrops Keep Falling on Your Head. Who did that?
The singer?
Yeah.
PJ Thomas?
Yeah, him too. He had some Beverly Hills and stuff. So we got exposed to all that. And
did you guys play on the Sunset Strip when you had your Whittier Boulevard hit during that time? Or in the late 60s?
I don't know if the late 60s. I know we played in the 70s, maybe even 80. I know we played at the Roxy, the Lingerie.
That was the 80s.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the other clubs, but I know we played there too,
But as the original classic group, you weren't playing on the Sunset Strip at that time in the mid-60s.
I don't believe so. Not the classic group. No.
Interesting. You would think it would have happened, because you had that big hit in LA, huge.
Top five. And I think Rhino or somebody did put out an album, a whole album with all the groups.
Oh yeah, sure.
Of the 60s.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of the whole album, but it was had about, I don't know, 3 or 4 CDs, and had all the groups on there by Rhino Records. I can't remember the name, but
Yeah, I know what they are. One of them was called Reconquista, but that was more the
Yeah.
Malo Tierra kind of thing. But there was
Mm.
one sort of East LA 60s kind of vibe. And there was one that was kind of punky. There were several they put out. I forgot the names of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but we were on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump, Jive, and Harmonize, or one of those.
Yeah. I have a CD that Mark and the Escorts and the Midnighters are both on, Jump, Jive, and Harmonize. And it's got Midnighters, Mark and the Escorts, Get Your Baby, and a bunch of other, groups of the era, that non-Brown groups, the more West Hollywood kind of bands. You probably don't know that album exists, yeah?
I
It's called Jump,
don't
Jive,
know.
and Harmonize.
Yeah,
And it's got your version of that.
yeah, I
Get
remember
Your
that. I was playing keyboards on that,
Yeah.
and it was an old, was it a Vox keyboard or something with the bars you had to pull?
Oh, yeah.
I went like that, and I couldn't get the right sound, but I got on there. That was a live recording at one of the theaters.
And that was a cover of who did it? Was it Louis Prima or somebody like that?
No, that was the original.
Jump, Jive, and Harmonize you guys wrote?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was an
wow.
original. The one you talk about is
Yeah. What's it called?
had a different title with Louis Prima. Yeah.
It's a big, and it was a hit again in the, one of the 90s
Mm,
groups.
yeah. No, but Jump, Jive, and Harmonize, yeah, that was
That's
an
one of your
original.
songs.
Yeah, that was an original.
Cool. Well, anything else, or is this is it?
Yeah, I guess that's it.
It's hard to remember everything, man. There's so much
Yeah,
stuff that happened, and I think we did a decent job of trying to pull it all together,
yeah, and hopefully I mentioned everyone that I could,
Yeah, I hope so
I
too.
had a,
We meant to,
had a,
it's hard to think this is on
yeah,
two guys talking on the fly. It's like a phone conversation.
yeah,
We can't remember everything. We can't get everything right. We're just two guys doing the best we can.
yeah, a lot of influences,
Yes, thank God.
and hope we left something behind.
Yes, that's right. Leave a legacy. That's right. Well, the Midnighters certainly have a legendary legacy there, and it's great that you were part of it.
Yeah, it's great being a part of it and knowing you and all the other musicians in East LA. It's fantastic.
Well, hopefully we'll do something again in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah. So thank you for doing it, man. It's been great. And you weren't the quiet Midnighter after all.
Yeah, well, it takes a little effort on my part. I don't know why. That's just the way I am, you know. But I had a very good time
Good. Good.
reminiscing and remembering,
Mhm.
and I'm sure I'll remember a lot more.
Yeah, once you go to bed tonight, you go, damn.
Yeah, I said, darn, I didn't mention this. I didn't mention him.
Okay. Well, thanks again, man, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
I can only give you love that lasts forever. Yes, indeed. Okay, man. Take care.
You too, man. Take care. Bye bye.